Southern Miss, after 61 days, finally breaks through and wins for the first time this season against a Division I opponent, and that comes against ULM. Just a complete switch from, I think, what we saw the last time we did an instant reaction, which was at South Alabama. Complete switch in this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then, ULM's offense was absolutely abysmal. So you can say maybe that was the defense playing well, or maybe just ULM's offense playing poorly. I think it's a little bit of both. But at the end of the day, important win just for the feelings and the emotions for this football team. Obviously, not the year that anyone expected or even the players really expected them to have. But now they're here, and we're here. Jackson Kennedy, Dima, Mixon here with your instant reactions after Southern Miss 24, ULM 7. Southern Miss now improves to 2-7, 1-5 in Sun Belt play. So bowl season out of the picture for Southern Miss, but they still have these 3 games remaining where 3 games, right? Yeah, 3 games remaining for Southern Miss where they can, kind of work in some of the offensive improvements that they've had and some of the defensive shuffles, especially in the secondary. And I think today they displayed that, and I think today they displayed what I think a lot of people watching this game was like, hey, where was that, right? Where was that 6 weeks ago? When they scored that opening touchdown, that was the first touchdown in this stadium since mid-September. So, which is insane when you really think about it. So a lot of people probably, where was that? But the bottom line is, now that they found it, all they're trying to do is look to build on it and grow on it. And I think the question just has to be asked, Jackson, as we'll bring you in here. Was the play calling that bad? Was that the reason they were getting held back? Because, I think there's definitely an argument made for it.
I don't want to be too prescriptive because there's a lot of other factors coming into play for the offense. Like maybe Coach Hall didn't have that much confidence in his offensive line because, if you want to run creative plays, if you want to run plays that could result in big gains, your offensive line has to block in a big way, either create a huge hole for a running back or give a quarterback enough time to make the right read and chuck it downfield, and the offensive line struggled. So, you've had to have very vanilla-style plays, but there's also been some things that I do think that the play calling could be done. Like, if power run up the middle, that is very different than a zone read up the middle, because whenever Frank Gore Jr. did a zone read up the middle against App State, 43 yards. Whenever you do a power run up the middle, you're lucky to get 5. And so I think that's one thing that can be said. But another thing that I want to point out is, like, all of these plays that have been called, and all these plays that were called last week and this week, those incredible trick plays, those fantastic big gains, those really sneaky plays in which you're like, wow, Southern Miss is doing this and they're doing it well, they were all drawn up by Will Hall. Will Hall created this playbook, and we are just finally getting to see it, or at least finally seeing a glimpse of what the reason he was hired for, because everybody touted him as an offensive genius coming into this. We hadn't really seen it, and I guess I didn't. I doubted it somewhat, but I knew that it was there because Southern Miss wouldn't have hired him had there not been something there, and he wouldn't have taken, a winless D2 team to a D2 national championship had he not been crafty with the offense. And it's just a thing of, I don't know for what reason those plays were never called, and I don't know if we will know. I just want to say that the last 2 weeks the play calling has improved. The second half of this game, I wasn't necessarily a fan of a lot of the play calls because instead of seeming like Southern Miss was trying to win this game, they do what they normally do whenever they have a lead at half, and then just try not to lose the game. And that's what could bother a lot of fans. That's what was a little frustrating to see because, you've got a 3rd down and 8, and instead of passing it, you run it up the middle for a gain of 2 to get a better punting position. And again, the battle for field position tonight was incredible. Southern Miss dominated in terms of field positioning. They very rarely ever gave the ball up past their own 20. And it was really, really good to see that. I thought the punting was impressive today. I thought being able to move up the field and punt, or even that blocked field goal, you still got the ball in a very favorable position for this nasty bunch defense. So I don't know. I really don't want to be too prescriptive, but I am a huge fan of the way that play calling has been. Jordy Joseph, Sam Gregg have really called a heck of a game, and I think it's a testament to having the guy calling the plays. He needs to be up in that box. He needs to be up in the box because that's where he's going to see it. And, I think we're seeing what the potential is for the Southern Miss offense if you have it up there. And it's encouraging to see because this offensive line is still very young. They're very young. A lot of the players that we're seeing getting starts midway through the season, they're young or they haven't developed or they're not at their fullest potential. But even still, maybe they'll grab some from the transfer portal. They're recruiting a good bit. So when we see an offensive line play at the fullest capability that they're able to, we're going to see a lot more trick plays. You're going to see a lot more Chandler Pittman chucking it down the field. We're going to see a lot more letting Billy Wiles have more than 1.7 seconds to pass the ball. And that's what's going to show improvement, because I know that there's a lot of people online saying that Billy Wiles isn't the guy, this, that, and the other, but it's like you can't accurately judge a quarterback if he doesn't have more than 2 seconds to pass the ball at any given moment.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to this question because it's not like the offense was particularly great tonight. Really they won 17-7. I mean, the final, the 24 was kind of, garbage time, whatever. But, they still got 444 yards of offense, 238 passing yards, 206 rushing yards. That's a good night as far as yardage go, and obviously they weren't getting anywhere close to that in the games like South Alabama or Old Dominion. But for the most part this season, they were able to get there. Arkansas State, they lost by 7, 44-37. Texas State, they had, I think, over 500 yards of offense in that game. So we're really looking at around, I would say, 3 games where the offense hasn't been able to keep up, I guess, which I would qualify as the Tulane game, South Alabama, and then Old Dominion. So, out of all the other games, I guess you just throw the Florida State game out. But, outside of all other games, they're right there in all the games. It's not like they're, getting gashed and they're not scoring. So, tonight their defense showed up and played, which I think was a testament to what kind of the team is this year, that everybody coming in had concerns about the secondary. They had concerns. I remember asking Will Hall about Media Day. This is a secondary who there's not a lot of experience back there. There wasn't any experience back there really when coming into the season. We saw Dylan Lawrence kind of in fall camp saying that he was a insanely good and talented player. He was the guy I drove the bus for on defense. And, obviously they have a veteran in Jay Stanley back there, but these corners, man, they had not played a lot of football. Obviously they've looked good in practice and stuff like that, but they hadn't played a lot of football. And then you go 1 or 2 of them come out and with injury, I think was what really hurt this team. Zay Franks tonight, coming from a wide receiver to cornerback, had an interception. That's just, really unbelievable to think about that he was, probably your 5th or 6th guy for wide receiver, and now he's playing cornerback because you don't have anybody else to play cornerback. So I think this season was defined not by the offense but rather by the defense. And I think if you could make an argument that they definitely should have won the Old Dominion game, right? They definitely had a chance to win the Tulane game. So I think if the question is, was all of that just play calling? I don't know if I can really make that go that far, because I think when you change something, it kind of brings new life, right? So like when they changed to Jordy Joseph and Sam Gregg, it was like, oh wow, or at least if I was a player, we're trying something new. I'm going to try to do what we're supposed to do. And like Jackson said, it's not like Jordy and Joseph and Sam Gregg are calling completely different plays than they used to. Most of these are pretty much the same plays, other than the outside read and stuff like that. They don't pound up the middle that much. But so I wouldn't go that far. I want to shift to Billy Wiles tonight. I think tonight, and especially last week and tonight, he has shown why me and Jackson have said that this is the offensive struggles were not on him. I mean, I think tonight you saw that. I mean, when he's able to sit back in the pocket and throw the ball, he generally gets it to where it's supposed to go. He had really one bad throw tonight that was just a terrible throw, which was the back shoulder fade interception. He left it. He underthrew his receiver, and you can never underthrow a slot fade like that. It's going to get intercepted every single time because it's just floating in the air. And when the DB turns around, it's basically right in his lap, right? You have to throw it over him, and you just have to hope your receiver goes up and gets it. But anyways, but other than that, I mean, really good night for him. I think he was 11 of 23, 200 yards, a touchdown. And then that 80-yarder to Ja'Carrius Caston.
Beautiful.
I mean, great play. So I think he showed tonight, especially last week, that the offensive woes, I don't think were his problem. I actually think that the offensive line has kind of been playing a little better than they've been playing over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, and my critiques in pointing out of the offensive line, I'm not saying that they're playing terribly. They are not playing at the level that Dima and I thought that they would be. However, last week and this week, they have showed a lot of improvement, and I really do think it's just the sense of kind of like what you were saying. You know, I'm a psych major, so I pay attention to things, especially on the sidelines and at practice and at media. And whenever you see things and whenever like change comes, you see like kind of a new life. And also, the weight, a lot of weight has been taken off their shoulders, and it's for a reason that fans may get mad at me. A weight has been taken off their shoulders because they're not really worried about being bowl eligible anymore. They can just go out there and play, you know? They're not like, oh, God, we have to win the next 6 in a row to be bowl eligible. We have to win 4 out of the next 6 to be bowl eligible and stuff like that. That's not going through their heads. They're just allowed to play football, and that also allows the play calling. It allows who goes in, so it allows the depth chart to be a little bit more experimental. That's why you're seeing Ethan Crawford in a lot of the read options. And so I think with those changes, with that, instead of tight-knit, directly controlled, exactly by the book, you're seeing make a play. Right. And that's kind of contributed to it. The offensive line looked a lot better. I think some drives they were a lot better than they were on others because, you know, you'll have some drives where, like Dima was saying, you give Billy Wiles, all he needs is like 3 seconds, man. You know? If you give him more than 2 seconds, he's going to put the ball exactly where you need it. He's going to hit those insanely great passes. One of my favorite things to see in terms of like, okay, this player did really well. One of my biggest tests is if I'm sitting right over there and I'm taking pictures or taking videos and they throw a pass or they make a run, if I get to a point in which I am turning to the side and now I can't see the play anymore, that's how I know that it was a really good gain. And when Billy Wiles had time, there were multiple times in which I was like, shucks, I really wish I could have grabbed that picture because that would have been great. But I also didn't want to, step on the field. But those, like, when you give Billy Wiles more than 2 seconds, he connects, he makes those plays. And this team loves him. You know, whenever we just did media day, or not media day, but media availability after the game, if you haven't watched that, you should definitely go check it out because a lot of good things have been learned. It was a much lighter-hearted press conference than it has been for the last 7 weeks, 8 weeks. So it was a breath of fresh air in that locker room, and you could very much tell. But when Frank Gore Jr. was up there, he brought Zay Franks with him because, Zay, a wide receiver now, getting a pick. And then he brought Billy up there and said, hey, look, everybody come up here. And all of them sat together. These players love them. They love each other, and they're fighting for each other. And I think that's a really big thing to point out. And the offensive line is the same. Billy Wiles and Ethan Crawford, as I'm walking along the sideline to switch parts of the end zone in which I'm standing or sitting to take pictures in, both of them are standing with the offensive line, encouraging them, yelling with them, just kind of hyping them up. But the offensive line has played better. I think it will be, what I meant by young players, I mean most necessarily kind of like Matt Riles and Gabe Cavazos. Both of those guys, they're only going to get better as the season progresses and as they get more touches. And I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing how they continue to grow. But Dima, what can you tell us? Just like talk to us about Frank Gore Jr.'s game. He had 167 all-purpose yards with a really impressive stretching touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, Frank Gore Jr. did what Frank Gore Jr. is supposed to do. I think it was a little bit different for him, as Will Hall actually pointed out. He wasn't really getting the home run ball that much. He had basically a 30-yard screen pass. But, I mean, everything else, it was 24 carries from 139 yards, getting about 5 yards of rush. I mean, that's a very productive night. That's what you want to see out of him and stuff that we weren't seeing out of him earlier in the season. I thought it was very interesting to me to hear from Will Hall when there was a certain thing he said about the team that I thought was very interesting. He said there's a lot of things that have happened that's outside of their control. And that just really was interesting to me because I was trying to rack my brain around what had happened this season that was outside of their control. And I think you can argue maybe that was injuries, but I just thought that was, because you're talking about Will Hall first, I just thought that was an interesting thing, that there was things within the program that had happened that were quote unquote outside of the players' control. So I don't know what that means, and Will Hall didn't comment on it. Scott Kurt of WDAM actually asked him and said, well, what does that mean? And he was like, I'm not going to go into that right now. And so we're just an interesting point to make that I wanted to make before this video ended. But Frank Gore Jr. did what he's supposed to do. And I thought Kenyon Clay actually behind him looked pretty good. 11 carries for 32 yards. He gave him a nice little break when he did need it. I mean, against a ULM team who I thought, for what it's worth, I think ULM played pretty good tonight. If they had a competent offense, I think they probably could have won this game. So they played pretty well tonight, and both teams did. But, when you're playing a game like this, like Jackson said, where you can kind of just play loose, where, it doesn't really matter, in the grand scheme of things. It's more for the program, and it's more for, we just need to win this game. We just need to do our thing. Then I think you can play a little more loose. I agree with that. And they definitely did tonight as they went on their way to win 24-7 against ULM. And, when I think I look at this game, I was thinking to myself in the press box, I was thinking, man, this just reminds me a lot of 2021 when, just a horrible start to the season, just flat out horrible. A lot of people thought going to South Alabama in 2021, they were going to win that game. This was just going to be a tremendous year. A lot of people, bought into Southern Miss that year. Obviously, they start the year off, I think, 1-7 as well. They go to Louisiana Tech, and they win that game 35-19. And then there was like a whole new realm of freshness around the entire program. And that really reminded me of what tonight was. I think all of us in our podcast picked Southern Miss to win this game, so it's not a shocker that they won this game. We thought that the improvements on the offensive side of the ball. Goodness, the improvements on the offensive side of the ball definitely gave Southern Miss a great chance to win this game. And so that was really encouraging. But I think what's different about this season and 2021 season is they still got 3 tough games left at Louisiana next week on a Thursday night in a short week. Louisiana's quarterback did get injured tonight, so we don't know his status for Southern Miss next week. Going on the road to play Mississippi State, and then home here against Troy. So all 3 of those games will be tough ones for the Golden Eagles. But I feel like, man, if the defense can play well and the offense continues the way they're doing, they'll at least have a chance in 2 of them. I'm not sure about 3 of them. But that's it. We'll get out of here. Go follow the show on 4th Street Sports Show, wherever you get your podcasts. And also this YouTube channel, if you're watching this YouTube channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There's no reason not to. We don't email you or text you. It's just a little thing in your YouTube. It'll come up every once in a while. And then you go to the site sm2media.com for all of our stories. Men's basketball starts next week. Women's basketball starts next week. Football's next week. And then we have, a lot of coverage coming to you throughout the winter and spring. So for Jackson Kennedy, I'm Dima Mixon. That was our instant reactions after Southern Miss 24, ULM 7.